The clock above the grill read 2:47 a.m. when Emma heard the crash. Not the usual sounds of the all-night highway. Not the rumble of trucks or the lonely howl of desert wind cutting across the Nevada flats. This was different. Metal scraping gravel, the sickening thud of a body hitting pavement. Then the roar of multiple engines. Angry, predatory, and then silence. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Emma Rodriguez had been wiping down tables at the Crossroads Diner for the last hour of her shift, fighting exhaustion, counting the minutes until she could go home and check on her son. The diner sat at the intersection of two forgotten highways, the kind of place that survived on truckers, insomniacs, and people running from something they couldn't name. At 2:47 a.m., Emma was always alone. The cook had left at midnight. The manager trusted her with the keys because, in 6 years, she'd never stolen a dime, never been late, never complained when her paycheck barely covered rent and her son's medical bills. She should have ignored it, should have locked the door and called 911 and let someone else handle whatever violence was bleeding out in her parking lot. That's what smart people did. That's what people who wanted to survive did. But Emma had learned something the hard way during 38 years of being invisible, of begging for help that never came, of watching her son struggle while strangers looked away. When you've been desperate and ignored, you don't turn your back on someone who might be dying. She grabbed the baseball bat from behind the counter. Her hands were shaking. She pushed through the door into the cold November night, and what she found would shatter her quiet life into 1,000 pieces. The man was face down in the gravel, 20 feet from a motorcycle that lay on its side, still ticking. With engine heat, blood pooled beneath him, spreading like spilled oil in the parking lot lights. His leather vest was shredded, torn by something sharp. Knives, maybe, or road rash from being thrown. The back of the vest bore a patch. A skull with crossed pistons, flames erupting from empty eye sockets. Above it, the words "Iron" reappears MC in bold letters that had seen 1,000 miles of highway. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd seen enough crime documentaries to know what motorcycle clubs meant. Territory wars. Violence. The kind of trouble that didn't discriminate between guilty and innocent bystanders. But this man was dying. She could see it in the way his chest barely moved, in the amount of blood soaking into the desert dirt. She crouched beside him, baseball bat forgotten on the ground, her hands shaking so badly she could barely touch his shoulder. "Hey," she whispered, "can you hear me?" His good eye opened. Just one. The other was swollen completely shut, purple and angry, but that one eye was gray, sharp, aware despite the damage. He tried to speak but only managed a wet cough that sent blood spattering across the gravel. "Don't talk. I'm calling an ambulance." "No." His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard, not threatening, desperate. "No. Cops. No. Hospital. You're bleeding out. You need, they'll come back." His voice was gravel and broken glass, each word costing him. "Serpents. They'll finish what they started." Emma glanced at the highway. Empty. Dark. Nothing but the distant glow of truck lights miles away. The nearest hospital was 40 miles east. The nearest police station even farther. And this man was convinced that whoever had done this would return. She'd worked at the Crossroads Diner long enough to know about the motorcycle clubs. The Iron Reapers controlled the northern routes. The Serpents controlled the south. And the Crossroads sat right on the border between their territories. Neutral ground. Supposedly. "What happened?" Emma asked. "Ambush." He winced, pressing his hand against his ribs. She could see blood seeping between his fingers. 5-on-1. Took my cut. My colors. My brothers don't know where I am. Phones. Smashed. Emma looked at the motorcycle. The front wheel was bent. The headlight shattered. This man had been riding when they hit him. Forced him off the road. Then they'd beaten him and left him to die. How long ago? 10, maybe 15 minutes. Which meant the Serpents could return at any moment. To make sure he was dead. To send a message. And if they found Emma helping him, she'd become part of that message. Every logical part of her brain screamed to walk away. Call 911 anonymously from inside. Lock the doors. Protect herself. But Emma thought about her son, Miguel, 12 years old with cerebral palsy. How many times had strangers looked at him in his wheelchair and turned away? How many times had people ignored his humanity because helping was inconvenient? She'd promised herself she'd never be one of those people. Emma made a choice that would cost her everything and give her more than she ever imagined. Can you stand? He tried. His legs buckled. Emma caught him. This man who had to weigh 200 pounds of muscle and leather and broken pride. She was 5'4" and 130 pounds soaking wet. But adrenaline is a hell of a thing. She looped his arm over her shoulder and dragged him toward the diner, leaving a trail of blood across the parking lot, across the threshold, across the cracked linoleum that she'd mopped 1,000 times. The stockroom was small and cramped. Boxes of supplies stacked to the ceiling. Industrial cans of tomatoes and green beans. Cleaning products that smelled like chemical flowers. Emma cleared a space between the shelves, shoving boxes aside with her hip while supporting 200 pounds of dying biker. She eased him down against the wall. He grunted, teeth clenched against, pain that had to be unbearable. Stay quiet, Emma whispered. Don't make a sound. She grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink. It was pathetic. Band-aids. Gauze. Antiseptic. Nothing close to what this man needed. But it was all she had. His vest was destroyed, but she could see the patches more clearly now. Road. Captain. Iron Reapers, MC. Nevada chapter. And a name patch over his heart. Cole. Cole, she said, making him focus on her. I'm Emma. I'm going to patch you up as best I can. But you need a hospital. Can't. His good eye found hers. They'll be watching. Hospitals. Clinics. Anywhere I'd go. Then you'll die here. Better than what the serpents will do if they catch me alive. Emma's hands stilled. She'd heard stories. Rumors about what happened to bikers who crossed into rival territory. About bodies found in the desert missing parts that couldn't be reattached. She lifted his shirt. 3 deep gashes across his ribs. Knife wounds. Not fatal if they were cleaned and stitched. But they would be if infection set in. This is going to hurt, Emma said. Everything already hurts. She poured antiseptic over the wounds. Cole's jaw clenched, but he didn't make a sound. Not a whimper. Not a curse. Emma had given birth without an epidural after 18 hours of labor, and she'd screamed enough for both of them. This man was absorbing agony, like it was part of breathing. She worked quickly, butterflying the wounds closed with surgical tape, wrapping gauze around his torso. His face was harder to fix. The eye would need ice. The nose might be broken. The lip would scar. Who are you? Cole asked while she worked. His voice was stronger now. Blood loss was slowing. Nobody, Emma said. Just a waitress. Nobody doesn't risk their life for strangers. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe you're decent. That's rarer. Emma finished wrapping his ribs and sat back on her heels. Why did they attack you? Cole was quiet for a moment. Territory dispute. The serpents claimed we crossed into their zone. We didn't. But facts don't matter when someone wants a war. And your brothers? Your club? They're 200 miles north. Annual run to Reno. I stayed behind to handle some business. Wrong place. Wrong time. He looked at her with that one sharp gray eye. They took my cut. My vest. That's worse than killing me. That's disrespect. Emma didn't fully understand the significance, but she heard it in his voice. Shame. Rage. Something deeper than physical pain. Can you contact them? Not without a phone. Use mine. She pulled out her phone, a cheap prepaid flip phone that barely held a charge. Cole stared at it like she'd offered him a lifeline to shore. He dialed with trembling fingers. The call rang 4 times. Then a voice answered, gruff and suspicious. Yeah, Reaper. It's Cole. The voice on the other end exploded. Cole? Where the hell have you been? We've been trying to reach you for 3 hours. Serpents jumped me. 5-on-1. They took my cut. The silence that followed was the kind that holds violence. Where are you? Crossroads Diner. Highway 50 and 375. I'm injured. Can't ride. We're 4 hours out. Can you hold? Cole looked at Emma. She nodded. Yeah, I can hold. Stay out of sight. We're coming. The call ended. Cole let his head fall back against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up to adrenaline. Thank you, he said quietly. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did, Emma replied. And she meant it. That's when the headlights swept across the diner windows. Emma's blood turned to ice. Through the stockroom door, she could see the front windows. 3 motorcycles. 4. 5. They pulled into the parking lot, engines growling like hunting dogs that had caught a scent. Cole grabbed her arm. Get out there. Act normal. Don't let them come back here. What if they won't hurt a civilian, not without cause. But if they find me, we're both dead. Emma stood on shaking legs. She smoothed her apron, wiped her hands on her jeans, and walked out of the stockroom, closing the door behind her. The bikers were already coming through the front entrance. 5 men, leather vests with a different patch, a coiled serpent with fangs bared, dripping venom. The serpent's MC. They moved like predators, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. The leader was tall, maybe 6'3", with a shaved head and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. His eyes were dead, the kind of eyes that had seen violence so many times it didn't register anymore. Evening, he said, though his smile was anything but friendly. Or should I say, morning. Emma forced herself to breathe normally, to smile the way she'd smiled at 1,000 difficult customers over 6 years of serving coffee and eggs to people who treated her like furniture. Morning. Can I get you boys some coffee? Actually, Scarface said, leaning against the counter. We're looking for someone. Big guy. Leather vest. Probably bleeding. You seen him? Emma kept her expression neutral. Concerned, but not too concerned. Helpful, but not suspicious. Haven't seen anyone but truckers all night. It's been dead quiet. Scarface studied her face. Emma had learned how to lie working 2 jobs while raising a disabled son alone. She'd lied to bill collectors, to Miguel's father when he asked if she was okay, to herself every morning when she said today would be better. She was very good at lying. You sure about that? Another biker, shorter with a spider web tattooed across his neck, walked around the diner, checking the booths, peering into the kitchen, moving toward the stockroom. Pretty sure, Emma said, her heart hammering so hard she thought they could hear it. But if you want to leave a number, I can call if I see anything. Scarface pulled out a card and slid it across the counter. There's a reward. $500 for information about an Iron Reaper. $500. That was Miguel's. Physical therapy for 2 months. That was the electric bill and groceries. That was breathing room. Emma picked up the card, smiled. I'll keep my eyes open. Spiderweb had reached the stockroom door. His hand was on the knob. Emma's mind raced. If they found Cole, she was dead. If they found Cole, her son would lose his mother. Miguel would end up in the system, in some group home where nobody would understand his needs, where he'd be just another file in an overburdened bureaucracy. Hey, Emma snapped, letting real anger into her voice. You can't go back there. Health code violation. You want me to call the sheriff? It was a bluff. Sheriff Morrison was 45 minutes away and wouldn't arrive for an hour even if she did call. But small-town waitresses learned early how to handle trouble with nothing but attitude and guts. Scarface held up a hand. Spiderweb stopped. No need for that, Scarface said smoothly. We're just looking for a friend. Heard he might have had an accident. Around here. Well, your friend isn't here, Emma said firmly. And I'm closing in 10 minutes. So, unless you want coffee, I need you to leave. The silence that followed was the kind that holds knives. Scarface's dead eyes swept over her one more time. Emma felt evaluated, measured, dismissed. All right, he said finally. But if you see him, he tapped the card on the counter. That reward still stands. They filed out, boots heavy on the linoleum. Engines roared back to life. Emma watched through the window as they circled the parking lot once. Headlights sweeping across Cole's abandoned motorcycle, then roared off into the desert night. She waited 5 full minutes before she allowed herself to collapse against the counter. Her legs finally giving out, her whole body shaking with delayed terror. She just lied to a gang, protected a stranger, put herself and her son at risk, and she'd do it again. Emma returned to the stockroom. Cole was conscious, one hand pressed against his ribs, the other gripping what looked like a wrench he'd found nearby, ready to fight even though he could barely stand. "They're gone," Emma said. Cole's shoulders sagged with relief. "You just saved my life. Again. Don't thank me yet. If they come back." "They won't. Not tonight. They think I crawled off to die somewhere." He looked at her with something close to awe. "You lied to the serpents. Do you understand what that means?" "It means I'm probably an idiot. It means you just made yourself pack," Cole said quietly. "Whether you know it or not." Emma didn't understand. Not yet. But she would. The next 3 hours were the longest of Emma's life. She made Cole as comfortable as possible, bringing him water, crackers, a pillow from her car. She checked his wounds every 30 minutes, watching for signs of infection or renewed bleeding. They talked to pass the time. Or rather, Emma talked and Cole listened. She told him about Miguel, about the cerebral palsy diagnosis when he was 2, about the father who'd promised forever and disappeared the moment disability entered the picture, about working 2 jobs and still falling behind, about the crushing weight of being the only thing standing between her son and a world that had no patience for broken things. Cole listened without judgment, without pity. When she finished, he said, "You're a warrior. You know that?" Emma laughed, a bitter sound. "I'm a waitress who can't afford her son's next round of therapy. You're a mother who fights every day for someone who can't fight for themselves. You're a woman who risks everything for strangers. That's a warrior where I come from." Something in his voice made Emma look at him differently, not as a biker, not as a stranger, but as a man who understood. "You have kids?" she asked. Cole's face darkened. "A daughter, Melissa. She's 17 now. Haven't seen her in 8 years. What happened?" "Her mother remarried. Some corporate guy. Clean-cut. Stable income. When the custody case went to court, the judge looked at me leather, tattoos, motorcycle club, and decided I wasn't fit to be a father." His voice was flat, emotionless, but Emma heard the wound beneath it. "She was 9 years old. Loved riding on the back of my bike. Then, one day, I wasn't allowed to see her anymore." "Cole, I'm so sorry. People see the vest, and they make assumptions. They see the patch, and they decide who you are before you open your mouth." He met her eyes. "You didn't do that. You saw someone who needed help. That's rare." Before Emma could respond, headlights appeared on the highway. Not 3 or 4. Dozens. A river of motorcycles flowing toward the diner like a flood that couldn't be stopped. Cole tried to stand. Emma helped him to the window. The parking lot filled with bikes. 20, 30, 40. Iron reapers, all bearing the same skull and crossed pistons. They moved with military precision, forming a protective perimeter around the diner. The lead bike cut its engine. A man dismounted. He was maybe 55, with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, and the bearing of someone who'd commanded respect for decades. His vest was covered in patches, and across his chest in bold letters, "President." Cole's face broke into something like relief. "That's Reaper, the chapter president." Reaper walked through the door with purpose, flanked by 2 others. His eyes found Cole immediately. "Jesus Christ," Reaper said, his voice rough with emotion. "You look like hell. Feel worse." Cole managed a weak smile. Reaper's eyes shifted to Emma. "You the one who called? He used my phone. You the one who patched him up?" Emma nodded. Reaper studied her for a long moment. Then he did something Emma didn't expect. He removed his sunglasses and extended his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "You saved one of my brothers." Emma shook his hand, feeling calluses that matched her own. "Anyone would have done it." "No," Reaper said firmly. "They wouldn't. Most people would have looked the other way. You didn't." The other Reapers were loading Cole carefully onto the back of a bike modified with a passenger seat. They worked with the efficiency of men who'd done this before, who'd carried wounded brothers off battlefields both literal and metaphorical. "We'll take him to our club doctor," Reaper said. "He'll be fine." "The serpents were here," Emma said quickly. "They're looking for him." Reaper's expression hardened. "They come back. You call this number." He handed her a card, black with a silver skull emblem. "Day or night. Someone answers in 30 seconds. I don't want trouble." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. You already have it, Reaper said, not unkindly. The serpents know someone helped Cole. They'll figure out it was you. When they do, you're going to need protection. Emma's stomach dropped. She'd been so focused on saving Cole that she hadn't thought about the consequences. About what happens after you cross a gang. What do I do? You call that number if anything happens. Anything. Strange cars. Threatening calls. Someone looks at you wrong. You call. Reaper paused. And tomorrow, around noon, you might want to be here. Why? Because the Iron Reapers pay their debts. And you're about to find out what that means. They left in formation, engines rumbling into the pre-dawn darkness. Emma stood in the empty parking lot, card clutched in her hand, watching the tail lights disappear. The sun was rising over the Nevada desert, painting everything gold and red. Emma's shift was over. She went home, checked on Miguel, kissed his forehead while he slept, and collapsed onto her own bed, fully clothed. She didn't know that in less than 12 hours, her life would explode into something she never saw coming. Emma woke up at 11:30 a.m., groggy and disoriented. She'd slept through her alarm. Miguel was already awake, making himself cereal, his wheelchair positioned perfectly at the kitchen table. "Morning, Mom," he said with that smile that made everything worthwhile. "Morning, baby." Emma kissed the top of his head. "Sorry I slept so late." "It's okay. You worked too hard." If only he knew. Emma showered quickly, checking her phone for missed calls. Nothing. Maybe Reaper had been exaggerating. Maybe the serpents would forget about her. Maybe she could go back to being invisible. But at 11:55 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Emma Rodriguez?" A woman's voice. Professional. Concerned. "Yes? This is Officer Martinez with the Nevada Highway Patrol. We need you to come down to the Crossroads Diner immediately." Emma's heart stopped. "Why? What happened?" "Just. You need to see this." Emma called Mrs. Chen, her neighbor who helped with Miguel, and drove the 15 minutes to the diner with her stomach in knots. She saw them from half a mile away. Motorcycles, hundreds of them, filling the parking lot, lining the highway, stretching as far as she could see. The rumble was like thunder, like an earthquake, like the world shifting on its axis. Emma pulled into the lot, or tried to. There was no room. She parked on the shoulder and walked, her legs shaking, her mind unable to process what she was seeing. 600 bikers, all wearing the Iron Reapers patch, all standing in perfect formation around the Crossroads Diner. Police cars were parked at the perimeter, officers looking nervous but not intervening. Whatever this was, it wasn't illegal, just overwhelming. Emma walked through the crowd, and as she did, something extraordinary happened. The bikers parted, creating a path, a corridor of leather and respect. And at the end of it stood Reaper, Cole beside him looking better but still bruised, and 40 other men and women who radiated authority. Emma reached them, breathless and confused. "What is this?" she whispered. Reaper smiled. "This is a thank you." Emma stood in front of 600 bikers, and the world narrowed to this impossible moment. Reaper raised his hand, and every single engine went silent. The sudden absence of sound was more powerful than the noise had been. Emma could hear her own heartbeat, could hear the wind cutting across the desert, could hear her own fear and wonder mixing into something she had no name for. "Emma Rodriguez," Reaper said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "You saved Cole's life. You lied to the serpents. You risked everything for a stranger. The Iron Reapers don't forget. We don't forgive debts unpaid." Cole stepped forward. He moved stiffly, but he was alive, conscious, healing. "You gave me a second chance," Cole said. "When I was dying in your parking lot, you didn't see a biker. You saw a human being. That's rare. That matters." Another man stepped forward, older, maybe 60, with a gray beard and eyes that had seen everything. His vest identified him as Ghost, national president. "I'm Ghost," he said. "I lead the Iron Reapers nationwide. When I heard what you did, I made a call. Every chapter from California to Texas answered. We ride for brotherhood. We ride for loyalty. Today, we ride for you. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I don't understand. You will, Ghost said gently. He gestured, and bikers began stepping forward. One by one, each carrying something. Envelopes, cash. The first was a woman, maybe 40, with kind eyes. She pressed an envelope into Emma's hands. For Miguel's therapy. My son has CP2. I know what it costs. Emma opened it. $500. Another biker. For your rent. Another. For groceries. Another. For whatever you need. They kept coming. An endless line of strangers who'd become family. Envelope after envelope after envelope. Emma's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold them. How much? She whispered. $32,000, Ghost said quietly. Collected from 600 brothers and sisters in 72 hours. That's what your kindness is worth to us. Emma's knees buckled. Cole caught her. $32,000. That was 2 years of Miguel's therapy. That was the car repairs. That was the medical debt. That was breathing room. That was hope. I can't accept this, she said, even as tears streamed down her face. You can, and you will, Reaper said firmly. Because this is the code. This is who we are. You honored us. We honor you. But they weren't finished. Ghost pulled out a folder. Inside is information about a scholarship fund. Established in Miguel's name. $20,000 for his education. College, trade school, whatever he needs. He's protected. Emma couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Cole stepped closer. And one more thing. As of today, the Crossroads Diner is under Iron Reaper protection. That means no one touches you. No one threatens you. The serpents come near you. They answer to all of us. Your family. Now, Reaper added, whether you ride or not, you're Pack. And we protect Pack. The crowd erupted. Engines revved in celebration. 600 voices raised in a roar that shook the desert. Emma stood in the center of it all, holding $32,000 and the promise of protection. And she finally understood. She'd saved one man. And in return, 600 had saved her. But not everyone celebrated. In a bar 40 miles south, Scarface watched the news coverage on his phone. Video of 600 Iron Reapers surrounding a diner. A waitress holding envelopes. The story going viral. His face twisted with rage. She lied to us, he snarled. Spiderweb sat beside him, equally furious. That waitress made us look weak. Made us look stupid. Scarface slammed his fist on the bar. We need to send a message. She protected a Reaper. She needs to pay. The serpents began planning their revenge, and Emma Rodriguez, who just received the blessing of 600 bikers, was about to discover that some debts come with a price. 3 days after the gathering, Emma returned to work. The diner was different now, busier. Travelers stopped just to see where it happened. To meet the waitress who'd protected a biker. Her manager, Lou, a nervous man in his 60s, was thrilled. Business had tripled, but he was also scared. Emma, he said carefully, the serpents have been asking questions. They know you helped that Reaper. I know. They might come back. Let them. Emma wasn't being brave. She was being practical. She had Reaper's card. She had protection. And she had $32,000 hidden in her apartment, more money than she'd seen in her entire life. For the first time in years, she felt safe. That feeling lasted until Thursday night. Emma closed the diner at midnight. Lou had left early, trusting her with the keys. She was locking up when she heard the motorcycles. Not Iron Reapers. Wrong sound. Wrong formation. Serpents. 7 of them pulled into the parking lot, headlights blazing. Scarface dismounted first, followed by Spiderweb and 5 others. Emma's hand went to her pocket. Reaper's card. Her phone. But before she could call, Scarface was there, his hand slamming against the diner door, preventing her from locking it. We need to talk, he said, his smile cold as January. Emma backed into the diner. I don't have anything to say to you. You lied to us. Scarface stepped inside. That Reaper you claimed you didn't see? He's alive. And you're the reason why. I helped someone who was hurt. That's all. You chose a side, Spiderweb said, following Scarface inside. The others fanned out, surrounding her. In our world, that has consequences. Emma's heart hammered. She tried to reach for her phone, but Scarface grabbed her wrist. "Call your Reaper friends," he sneered. "Let's see how fast they get here." Emma's mind raced. The Iron Reapers were miles away. Even if she called, they'd need 30 minutes minimum. Too long. She was alone. But Emma Rodriguez had been alone her whole life. She'd survived her son's father abandoning them, survived working 2 jobs, survived being invisible and broke and desperate. She wasn't helpless. Emma's free hand found the coffee pot on the warmer. Still hot. She swung it hard, catching Scarface across the face. He screamed, releasing her wrist, stumbling backward. She ran, out the back door, into the desert night. Behind her, boots pounded gravel, angry voices. The serpents were hunting her. Emma fumbled for her phone, dialing as she ran. The card, the number. It rang once. "Iron Reapers. This is Emma Rodriguez." She gasped. "The serpents are at the diner." "There." Hands grabbed her from behind. The phone flew from her grip, landing somewhere in the dark. Spiderweb dragged her back toward the diner. "You're going to regret that." Emma fought, kicked, screamed. But there were 7 of them, and one of her. They threw her against the diner's exterior wall. Scarface approached, his face burned from the coffee, rage making him unrecognizable. "You think the Reapers make you untouchable?" he hissed. "They're not here, and by the time they arrive, you'll be a message." He raised his fist, and that's when the first engine roared out of the darkness. Cole came out of the night like a force of nature. His motorcycle screamed into the parking lot, headlight blazing. He didn't slow down, didn't stop. He rode straight at the cluster of serpents, forcing them to scatter or be hit. He dismounted mid-slide, the bike crashing onto its side, and he was on them before they could react. Cole was still healing, still injured, but he was also a man who'd ridden for 25 years, who'd survived countless fights, who'd learned violence the way most people learn to breathe. He hit Spiderweb first, a brutal punch that sent the smaller man sprawling. Another serpent lunged, and Cole sidestepped, using the man's momentum to throw him into the diner wall. "Emma, run!" Cole shouted, but Emma couldn't move, couldn't look away. Scarface pulled a knife. "You're dead, Reaper." Cole grinned, blood on his teeth from a reopened wound. "Not the first time someone's told me that." They circled each other. Scarface lunged. Cole dodged, barely, the knife catching his shoulder. He didn't slow. He grabbed Scarface's wrist, twisted hard, and the knife clattered to the ground. Then Cole heard what Emma heard. Thunder. Dozens of engines. Growing closer. Louder. The Reapers were coming. The serpents heard it too. Scarface's face went pale. He grabbed his knife, shouted to his crew, and they scrambled for their bikes. They were gone 30 seconds before the Iron Reapers arrived. 40 bikes flooded the parking lot. Reaper, Ghost, and Cole's road crew. They found Emma on the ground, Cole bleeding beside her, and serpent motorcycles disappearing into the desert night. Reaper helped Emma to her feet. "You okay?" Emma nodded, though she was shaking so badly her teeth chattered. Ghost examined Cole's reopened wound. "You're an idiot for riding in your condition," she called. Cole said simply. Nothing else mattered. Reaper looked at Emma. "This ends now." The serpents made their move. "Now, we make ours." What followed was not violence, not revenge, but something the serpents didn't expect. Strategy. The Iron Reapers gathered at their clubhouse, a compound 20 miles north. Emma sat in the main room, surrounded by road captains and chapter presidents, all discussing how to end this without bloodshed. "We can't let them think they can touch our people," one captain argued. "But we also can't start a war that gets civilians killed," Ghost countered. Cole, bandaged again, looked at Emma. "What do you want?" "This is about you." Emma thought about Miguel, about the money, about the scholarship, about finally having hope after years of drowning. "I want it over," she said quietly. "I want to go back to being nobody." "You're not nobody," Cole said, firmly. "Not anymore." Reaper had an idea. "The serpents think they can intimidate us through Emma. What if we make Emma visible? What if we make her story so public that touching her means national attention? Media? Ghost asked. Exactly. We give interviews. We tell the story. Waitress saves biker. Brotherhood protects her. Serpents threaten her. The public loves underdog stories. We make Emma untouchable through visibility. It worked. Within 48 hours, Emma's story was everywhere. Local news, national news. Social media exploded. The hashtag number Protect Emma trended. News vans camped outside the Crossroads Diner. The Iron Reapers gave interviews, dignified and articulate, explaining the code of honor. Emma gave interviews, humble and honest about helping someone who needed it. And the serpents? They faded into the background. Their reputation damaged by attacking a civilian, by threatening a mother, by being the villains in a story the world was watching. Scarface called for a ceasefire 2 weeks later. A neutral meeting. Ghost and Reaper represented the Iron Reapers. The terms were simple. Emma Rodriguez was off limits. Permanently. The serpents would leave her alone, leave the diner alone, and in return, the Reapers wouldn't push for their complete destruction. She's protected, Ghost said flatly. Forever. You come near her. You answer to every Reaper from California to Maine. Scarface, his face still scarred from the coffee burn, nodded stiffly. He'd lost. Not through violence. Through honor. The serpents left. And Emma was finally safe. 6 months later, the Crossroads Diner was thriving. Emma still worked there, but now as co-owner, Lou had sold her half the business with money she'd saved from the Reaper's gift. The diner had become a landmark, a symbol of kindness and courage. A plaque hung behind the counter, in honor of brotherhood and the power of compassion, and discreetly etched into the new concrete walkway outside, a skull with crossed pistons, permanent, protective. Miguel's therapy was covered for the next 3 years. His scholarship sat in a trust, waiting, and Emma, for the first time in her adult life, slept without fear. Cole visited every Thursday. Always ordered the same thing, black coffee and apple pie. They'd become friends, this biker and this waitress, bound by the night that changed both their lives. How's Melissa? Emma asked one Thursday evening. Cole's face softened. She called me last week. First time in 8 years. She's 18 now. Wants to meet. Cole, that's wonderful. She saw the news story. Saw me protecting you, she said. His voice caught. She said she'd never been prouder to be my daughter. Emma reached across the counter and squeezed his hand. The Iron Reapers held an annual charity ride now, starting at the Crossroads Diner. Proceeds went to families with disabled children. Hundreds of bikers, raising tens of thousands of dollars. Emma spoke at schools and community centers. She told people about kindness, about looking past appearances, about how one small act can ripple into something beautiful. She admitted something she'd kept quiet. She'd almost turned Cole away that night. Fear had told her to lock the door. Prejudice had whispered that bikers were dangerous. But she'd looked closer, past the leather, past the patches, and seen humanity. That's the lesson, Emma told her audiences. You push past the fear. You choose to see, because kindness isn't about comfort. It's about courage. One Saturday morning, a year after everything began, Emma was opening the diner when a young woman approached. She had Cole's gray eyes. Emma Rodriguez? The woman asked. Yes? I'm Melissa, Cole's daughter. She smiled nervously. I wanted to meet the woman who helped my dad remember who he was. Emma hugged her. This stranger, who'd become family. Later that morning, Cole arrived to find Emma and Melissa drinking coffee, laughing, sharing stories. He stood in the family doorway, and Emma saw tears on his face. Thank you, he mouthed silently. Emma nodded. No words needed. The diner filled with Saturday customers. Iron Reapers mixed with truckers, families, travelers. The kind of place where everyone was welcome, where kindness was currency, where a waitress had proven that decency still existed. Emma poured coffee and served pie, and smiled genuinely for the first time in years. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was a warrior who'd protected a stranger, stood up to a gang, and built a family from brotherhood and honor. And in the desert morning sun, The Crossroads Diner stood as proof that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is help someone in the dark. Even if it changes your life forever. Especially if it changes your life forever. Emma Rodriguez was a nobody. A single mother. A waitress drowning in bills. Invisible. Until the night she chose kindness over fear. She saved one man's life. And 600 brothers saved hers. The Iron Reapers taught her that honor still exists. That loyalty matters. That family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's leather and engines and a code older than the roads they ride. The serpents learned that some people can't be intimidated. That attacking the vulnerable makes you the villain. That honor will always defeat cruelty. And Emma? She learned she was never really alone. Before we end this story, I need to know, are you with the cynics who say this world is beyond saving? Or are you with Emma? With Cole? With Reaper? With Ghost? With 600 bikers who prove that brotherhood still means something? Drop your comment. Hit that like. Subscribe. Share this story. Because every time you do, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. You're saying that kindness matters. That small acts have infinite ripples. That a 38-year-old waitress protecting a dying stranger can change everything. Emma pushed past her fear and helped someone who needed it. What are you gonna do? The world is watching. Your move. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.